Okay, here we go. We're recording now. So this is the intro to AutoCAD, and the tools that we're going to go over. In my estimation, these are the 20. These are in the top 20 tools that you're going to use. These tools are going to be 90% of what you need to do in AutoCAD. So let's just go through them here. We've got move, copy, extend, array, offset, scale, mirror, rotate, line, Polyline, also known as P-line, Spline, also known as SPL, rectangle, circle. There is a tool called for text that we can go over, and then the layer management tools, which is layer, current layer, match properties, and properties. Okay, those are legitimately, those are the tools that you need to have. As we're going through this, I want you to have your sketchbook out so that you can write down, because as I'm explaining them to you, I'm going to also be verbalizing what their code is, because you can access tools, and let's switch to the screen share. So here we are in the AutoCAD screen share. So first of all, as we went over on Monday, you can include your tools by, you can access the kind of noun tools, the object tools up here. And the nice thing about AutoCAD is that if you just mouse over and stay over that tool, it will do a brief explanation of what it is, and it will invite you to hit F1 for more help. And that'll get you to the AutoCAD forums, where you can ask more questions if you want to understand how to use the tool in a higher order. The other thing to notice, same as Adobe, is that if there's a little triangle by the tool itself, you can click on that triangle and you can see that there are more methods to use that tool. So for example, for a circle, the base default is to do a center circle starting from the center point and working out to the radius. But you can also do a 2-point circle, creates a circle using 2 endpoints of the diameter. You can do a 3-point circle, which creates a circle that passes through 3 points that you set on the image. There's different times to use these different methods. To find out these different methods, I encourage you to explore and experiment. AutoCAD likes for you to find new ways to put things together. It's very easy to kind of get comfortable with only putting things together one way, but there's always multiple ways that you can solve a problem. And so, number one, you need to experiment and explore new tool sets and new combinations of tool sets. And number two, I encourage you to work with somebody. So since we can't do that in person, I would FaceTime with somebody, I would do a Google Hangout, I would set up a Zoom meeting with a group of friends who are in this class, and I would choose to do some of your homework together, so that, because Cole might draw a circle one way, Alex might draw a circle a different way, and then you can kind of compare and see why one way versus another way might have some benefits or just a different result, okay? Over here are all the tools that I just went through: move, copy, stretch. Some of these tools also have triangular extended menus. So you can see that extend is also trim, because they're kind of two halves of a whole. Trim is the opposite of extend, but they work in the same way. All right, we're gonna use our base layer of the Philadelphia Art Museum to start drawing some examples of this information. And then the other piece that I want to draw your attention to along this ribbon is this area right here, which is layer properties and the layer menu. As I click this pull down menu, you'll see that there's already some defaults that are existing already in your CAD file that you have open on your computer. So that's layer 0 and the def points layer. Those are almost always in every CAD drawing. Sometimes they're not, but 99.9% of the time you will have a 0 and a def points layer. Those are layers that you don't want to draw on, or those are layers that don't print. All right, so those layers are for kind of laying out pages, they're for markup lines, they're for the invisible grid. Those are what those are for. You'll see that these two downloaded layers that I have in our base map here is the Philadelphia Buildings 2017 layer and the Street Curbs layer. And let's just look carefully at this. You'll see that there's a light bulb, a sun, and a lock. So I have these padlocked which means that they're locked. And when they're locked, can you see how they move from being white to gray? I have them locked because I don't want to accidentally delete them, and I don't want to accidentally move them. If we started moving the art museum, well, that would be a problem. So if we accidentally deleted the art museum, we couldn't get it back. And then if we move the art museum not on purpose, that would also be a bad thing. So I'm going to keep those layers locked. Now, in my class earlier today, I was doing some examples of sound, of veggies, and of construction lines. And so I have those layers, and I can hit the light bulb to turn them on and off. And the rules for our AutoCAD file are going to be the same as Project 1. Don't throw anything away. So you can make as many layers as you want, and if you don't like them, you can turn them off. Much like Nick was saying he wished he could do in our Zoom diagram earlier. If you could just kind of reduce some of the information. Okay, before we get into using these tools, I want to talk about layer management. And we've gone over layers before in Photoshop. And so we have layers here in the same way. So in Photoshop, they were holding images. Here, they hold lines. Along the top here, if you just hover over these buttons, you can see the first button is new layer. The next button is a new viewpoint. That's not an important one. Here's delete layer in case you make something you don't like. And then also set current layer, okay? So let's make a new layer. And this is where I want to introduce you guys to the naming conventions that we're going to use. So on Monday, we're going to take all of the files that everybody has made for their homework, and we're going to combine them into one massive diagram where we're going to share all of our stuff dynamically. So since we can't be in the room together, we're going to digitally be in the same file. So every layer needs to start with your name, okay? Every layer needs to start with your name and then an underscore. And let's do views. So I will do views, and this layer will be set as my name underscore views, all right? It starts with some defaults. It starts as being turned on, unlocked, continuous line with a default line weight. We are not going to change the line type or the line weight, but we will interact with the color. To change the color, double click on the color itself, and you will see the 256 ridiculous colors that we can draw in. And because we're drawing mostly on a black screen, and because we're drawing where it's important to understand the difference between them, we're going to draw with ridiculous color palettes. So a CAD drawing can look very nice if it's shades of blue, but it's actually really hard to read. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose a ridiculous color. So I'm going to choose cyan from the general palette down here. I'm going to say OK, because I haven't used cyan yet. All right. And I'm going to use cyan, and we are going to double click on it to make it the current layer. You know that it's the current layer because this little green check mark is going to move next to it. Okay. That means that everything I draw is going to be on that layer. Last thing I want to go over, let's say I spelled my name wrong. Well, you change it just like you change anything else. Use other rules. So I can actually describe it by renaming that layer, and you can rename it at any time. So if you accidentally do something, you can go back and you can fix it. I'm going to close this now. We can get back to layer properties at any time by pressing this button. Okay, so we have the view Andrew underscore views and other visuals set, and let's start with the line tool, and we can just draw the biggest, most important piece by drawing that line right there. Okay, zoom in and zoom out by using your mouse wheel. Draw by clicking, and you can draw beyond, you can draw for as far as you want. So if you really want to draw that view to City Hall, we can do that, all right? Now, right now, you'll notice a couple of things that are happening. So I have the command line up here at the top of the page. It may be at the bottom of the page for you, or you may have accidentally turned it off. You don't have to have the command line on, but there are 3 ways that you can use any set of tools. Number 1, you can use the ribbon, which is this area at the top of the screen here. Number 2, you can type it in as a code, which uses the command line. And number 3, you can just hit a button. So like I could hit C, And it will automatically come up wherever your cursor is, and then you can click on it from here. Different people like to interface with the tool sets differently. None of them are better or worse than each other. They just are. Now, most people who get very comfortable using AutoCAD remember what the abbreviations are for the coding, and they will just code them into the command line. So I know that C is for circle. So I will just type C when I want circle. And I can either wait for it to come up because there's a half a minute before there's just like a half second before a circle comes up. I can hit C and enter. And remember, return in the coding language of AutoCAD is one of 3 buttons. It's either right click, enter, or spacebar. For some real weird reason, enter is spacebar in AutoCAD. So if I want to get to circle and I don't want to wait, I can do C spacebar, and I immediately will get to circle. And it will tell me that I'm at circle up here in the command line. Okay, so I can set that, and I can set the view with a circle right there. Remember,
Okay,
go ahead.
so do you draw it and then you let go and then you hit circle and then it stays?
So right now, the default for circle is to start at the center point and draw out from a radius. So if I do C spacebar, I'm clicking right here. I'm clicking once. I'm pulling out the radius, and I'm clicking again, and that ends the command. Let's just watch on the command line.
So you do the command and then you hit the button.
Yeah. So C spacebar, that says, yes, please do the circle command. And then it's going to tell me it's going to tell you in the command line what to do. It's going to say specify center point for the circle, or, and then there's options here, okay? Or tangent, or tangent radius, or 3-point, or 2-point. So let's do specify the center for the circle. So we are going to specify the center. So, and I'll do it over here. Here's specifying. And do you see how it's actually telling me, if I look next to my cursor, it actually tells me what to do there as well. Specify the center, so I'm going to click to specify the center. Now it says specify the radius, and I can pull it out to specify the radius. The other thing that you can do is that you can type in the measurement. You guys see how next to my cursor there is lines now? So I could type 50 apostrophe for feet and then hit spacebar. That is a circle with a 50-foot radius. This will get easier as you practice it. It only comes slowly and through much, much practice. So drawing in a repetitive way is very helpful. Now, there's different ways to draw a circle. So let's try one of those different ways to draw a circle, all right? Let's go up here to circle on the ribbon. Let's pull it down, and let's do a 3-point circle. I'm going to hover over it so it just gives us an example. So that's a circle that passes through 3 separate points. So instead of defining the center and the radius, we're going to define the 3 points the circle passes through. Let's click on that, and it says specify center point for the circle. Well, we're doing 3-point. So if you look down here at my cursor, it's going to say specify first point on the circle. So I'm going to click. I'm going to click. And then you can see that the circle changes dynamically depending on where I'm putting this third. So it's a totally different kind of a circle than what I was doing before. And then when I specified those 3 points, the command finishes. If I start drawing a command that I don't want to do, like I want to get out of it, I want to escape the command, hit the escape button. If you're doing anything that you don't want to do, hit escape. And it will actually get into, one of the rhythms that you'll fall into is hitting spacebar for enter and hitting escape. My old computer that I just got rid of, the spacebar was polished, really, really shiny, and the E on the escape were starting to kind of wear away. All right, so the way that I'm drawing right now is that I have my left hand on escape and spacebar, and I can kind of write in the code with my left hand, and then I can mouse with my right hand. If you're left-handed, you just switch that over, and you can also be escape with your palm, or sorry, escape with your finger and spacebar with your palm. So let's just try drawing a couple of different of the noun, the object phrases, so we can see what they are. So here's the line tool, and you'll see that line keeps drawing until I hit escape. But one of the important things, excuse me, is that each of these is its own object. So if I click on it, you'll just see it selected one at a time. So let's move up to the polyline, which means a line of many lines. All right, so let's do polyline, and I'm just gonna trace the outside of that same shape loosely. And you can see that they look the same. I'm gonna hit escape again to end the command. But if I select it, the whole thing brightens up. And if I click on it, the whole thing turns blue. That means that that is all one element. So this group of lines is 4 separate lines. This group of lines is one complex line. All right, and let's do a third line type, which is called spline. So there is line, there is polyline, and then there is spline.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
You say that your right click kind of works similar to the escape button?
My right click works as the enter.
Okay.
So this is what happens when I click. So right now, I've just stopped after hitting right click. As soon as I right click, it brings up this menu on my screen, and it gives me these options. So I can cancel, or I can hit enter. All right, so here's what happens if I hit cancel. You'll see that it works as escape. Let me hit my right click again. One of the speed responses in the mouse commands is that it will immediately repeat one of the tools that you've just done. So here's repeat spline, okay? Spline does not exist as a button up here on the ribbon, but if you type SPL, again, if you type SPL, you will get spline, and it'll say specify first point, and you can keep specifying the points. All right, and then I'm gonna right click, and I can say enter, and it ends it right there. So you guys can see the difference here. This is what line command gets me. This is what polyline gets me, and this is what spline looks like. So if we click on spline, it will highlight it, it will turn it blue, and you'll see these little nodes on the line. Those are control points. And you can actually grab a hold of those control points by clicking and holding, and you can move them around. And you'll see that as you move them, it actually changes the line dynamically. Spline is one of my favorite tools, especially for doing diagrams, because it allows me to draw in a way that I would draw by hand. And it also allows me a way to edit them to make them better. The same thing with P-line. So you can see P-line, I can grab that node and I can move it around. I can also grab a middle node and I can move the whole line as if I'm moving a segment by itself. I can't do that with a line that's by itself. If I move a line by itself, it's its own object, and I can only move it and not its neighbors. There are times to draw with lines. There are times to draw with P-lines. There are times to draw with splines. And the best way to know how to do that is to just experiment, all right? Accept the fact that you're not really sure. You're here to experiment. You're here to explore. And so the value will come through just trying it out and practicing it thoroughly. And just like in the Zoom diagrams that we were doing, more lines gives you a better drawing. So better lines, better ingredients, Papa John's, okay?
How do you just like delete something you draw?
Sure, all right, so let's say that we hate our P line. Select it and hit delete. All right, let's say we want to clean out this entire area. All right, we can select these elements. All right, and we can keep adding by clicking on them. And you can also just say erase. Erase is a tool, and you can literally click on things and they will erase as well. I gotta say, I don't use erase very much because I just hit delete. Last way that you could go about deleting stuff, let me get a lot of lines on here, just make a real nice mess. The select tool is very sensitive, so you kind of select things by kind of hitting them directly, but you can also box select or group select. And in the new version of AutoCAD, the box does not work. So for example, for those of you who used AutoCAD a long time ago, you might be familiar with the term box selecting. That doesn't happen automatically anymore. What we do is we have this crossing box. So I'm going to click and hold right now. So I'm holding my button on my mouse, and as I move across everything, you can see that it lights up everything that I've touched. When I let go, all those things remain selected. And if I hit delete, they will go away. Sometimes that's great. And then sometimes I delete something that I don't want to delete. Control Z, just like it is in any program, Control Z is undo. All right. Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to just kind of clean up this area right here. I'm going to zoom in here. All right. So let's add some layers to what it is that we're working on. I'm going to start by adding my construction lines layer. This is a layer that I add to every single drawing that I ever do. I'm going to turn this layer on. I'm going to rename this layer by double clicking. Make sure that it says Andrew _. That way it will sort properly. The color of construction for me is the color of construction cones, and construction cones are orange. And so my construction lines are always orange. That's something that I personally do. That's not something that is done in a lot of offices. Generally, people will draw on def points, or an office will have its own layer system. Managing your layers is important. Every office manages them differently. But I like to draw my construction lines, and I like to draw them orange, so they help me draw things. You guys might notice that as we're drawing, the lines are sticky. And as we stick to the lines, different shapes come up. So like a little square will come up, or a dashed line will come up. And this is called the snap feature. This happened in InDesign and in Photoshop when we use the guidelines. And this is one of my favorite names for a line, for a control. It is called snap, and you turn it on and off. There you go. Can you read what's on my screen? Oh, snap. Snap is controlled by typing oh, snap. All right. And the snap control is also down here in the lower right-hand side of the screen. And you can see that you can turn snaps on and off. You can also turn a grid on and off, and it'll even give you a little shortcut, the F7 key, the F9 key, to turn snaps on and off. So here's that little triangle, which means there's added functionality. And let's just bring this up right now, snap settings. So down here, this little grid, snap settings, and let's turn this on right here. And we've got a bunch of tabs. We can do a snap grid, we can do polar tracking, object snaps. That's what we're interested in, is this menu called object snaps. And I can turn stuff on and off. So I have my favorite settings turned on. The nice thing about this, if we were working in the lab, you would have to reset your snap features every time you log onto the computer because it forgets them. But you guys are all working on your laptops now. So once you set up your snap settings, you got them set up right. You don't have to worry about it. You do it once and you're done. But you can come in here, and if it's too sticky, you can dull the snaps by only having them snap to things like endpoints. So right now I have endpoints turned on, so it'll snap to the end of a line, the middle point of a line automatically, the center of a circle, intersection of two lines, perpendiculars, and insertion points. Those will all turn on. This is, you guys remember my term Spider-Man tools. So a Spider-Man tool is something that's really powerful, and it can be used for the forces of good, but it can also be tempting to use it for the forces of evil. And if you use it for the forces of evil, it will severely mess up your life. So things like intersection, center, endpoint, those are good. But these ones are evil, and you should never, 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 ever, ever, never, ever, never, ever use them. They are nearest and apparent intersection. You should never, ever, never, ever, ever, ever use apparent intersection or nearest. Because what will happen is that it will make a line that seems like it intersects with another one, but doesn't. And it might be off by a millionth of an inch, which is a measurement that we will never use architecturally. Millions of inches are for scientists, not for architects. And so if you have that selected, there are some tools that you will use that need to make sure that lines are intersecting with each other. And if it's off by a half a pixel, there's no way for the computer to show you that it doesn't actually intersect. And so what you will get is a problem that you will never be able to identify. and you will be very frustrated as to why your file isn't working the way it should. If you look visually at me right now, if you look at my face on the video, all right, so right now it looks like my fingers are intersecting each other, except if I rotate, they're not. This is an apparent intersection, all right? This is a visual trick that I'm playing on you. And AutoCAD can do the same thing with an apparent intersection where it seems like my fingers are touching, but if we zoom in, they're actually not. But since you're viewing them from far away, it looks like they're touching. That's why we never want to have nearest or apparent intersection turned on. I've now spent a minute talking about why we shouldn't do these. I will move on. All right, let's look at some of the other lines that we have here. I'm just going to quickly draw some construction polylines around here. I like to draw construction lines and then I leave them on. And then when I'm done, I turn my construction layer off so that you don't have to see them, but it looks like I've drawn everything really pretty and neat and nice and organized. I'm going to draw in the staircase. So let's drop in a new layer, and I'm going to call it Andrew_stairs. One of our inventory items is man-made infrastructure. I'm going to color the stairs hot pink. There we go. That works for me. All right. I'm going to draw those as a line. I'm going to draw those as a line that goes all the way across the site. And we've encountered one of our first problems, which is that I've drawn that line on the wrong layer. Don't worry, we can change it. So let's select that line. We can type in properties, PRO, and as you can see,
how do you get the command bar to just follow your cursor?
It should be doing it as you start typing PRO. It should, after about a half a second, it should just pop up. If it's not,
yeah, mine just goes to the command bar, which is at the bottom of my.
All right, that's okay too. That's okay too. If it's showing up down there, that's all right too. And I can troubleshoot it with you after we're done with the instruction. So here's properties, and it'll tell you what it is. So it's a line, its color is by layer, and here's the layer that it's on, okay? We never want to change a color of a line to be independent from its layer. So we can make it blue even though it's on an orange layer, but since we identify all things orange as being on the same layer, we need to keep that the same. But let's move it over by grabbing this little pull down menu, and we'll put it onto Andrew Stairs, and you'll see that it changed colors. So let me select off it. I'm just hitting the escape button to kind of deselect the object, and you can see, there we go. We have that there. Okay, now there's a couple of different things that I could do to make this thing repeat. Let's use the move tool. M is for move. M is for move. I can select it and I can move it. It's going to ask me to the area to displace it. So again, M is for move. Spacebar makes it key in. Select the object. There's only one object, and then I'm going to hit spacebar to return, and then I'm going to measure the displacement. And I can measure the displacement and I can type it in, or I can just do it visually. So here I'm going to have the stair go right to there. All right, let's say we have multiple versions of the stair steps. We want to copy it. CO is copy. CO is copy. And I can visually use the displacement to just copy them again and again and again. But you can see that one of the problems is that they might all be different. So let's do Control Z. That's undo. And instead, let's do copy. And let's copy one. And let's be more specific about the displacement. Let's say that it's 2 feet. There we go. I've got 2 copies right there. Now, here's where things can get fun. Let's do copy again. But instead of putting my displacement by typing it in, let's hit enter to select the objects. There we go. And let's set the displacement. But now using OSnap, with my OSnap turned on, let me snag it from here and move down, and continue to move down, clicking every time on the new piece that I've just put on. And you'll see that all of these are now 2 feet off from each other. That's pretty cool, but this is AutoCAD, so there's 6 ways to do it. So let's use another tool, offset. Coding for offset is OF. OF is offset. Basically, if you guys see that the code is just to start typing the command. So we're going to do offset. We can specify the distance as 2 feet. And we can select the tool, and then it will offset it whichever direction I go. So offset here, you can see, let me do it on this command line. Just it'll offset it to the right if I pull to the right, offset it to the left if I pull to the left. So we can do repeat offset, enter, and select. And then I can continue offsetting these regularly, okay? Now, the stair does not go all the way across the front of the art museum. It actually needs to get trimmed. So I'm going to use a polyline on my construction layer. So here's Polyline again, and I'm going to set it here, here.
I have a question.
Yes,
Are you gonna go over Ortho Mode?
I will.
Okay.
I can do that. All right, so let's use trim for the moment. I'm going to go up here to trim, pull down that menu and select trim, but I can also do the command line for trim. So I start typing the word trim, TR. TR is trim, TR. Hit enter. And first, and I'm going to give you guys the preface, which is that I always do this the wrong way. And that's okay, because you're going to do it the wrong way too. And Andrew does it the wrong way, so it's okay for you to do it the wrong way. And what we're going to do is we're going to make one of these lines into a laser beam, and it is going to cut through like hot plasma our other lines. So I'm going to select this and hit enter. That has become the line that is trimming. Oh, I did it the right way. All right, usually I select the thing I want to get cut, and I do it in the opposite order. So you select the thing that you want to do the cutting with, and then you select the things that want to get cut. And you can see that as I click on them, they disappear cleanly and all aligned as if they were all cut by the same object. Check that out. When I'm done, I hit escape to get out of the command. Let's say that I instead drew them all a little bit short. So I've just used the move command to move this a little bit off. Let's use the opposite of trim, which is extend, EX. EX gets us to extend. Extend does the same thing where it says select the object that you want them to warp towards, hit enter, and as I select them, these lines will extend to it. You can see that these lines don't even need to be of the same line, so I'm extending some construction lines to it as well. I can even box select and extend all of them in one big fell swoop, which saves me a lot of time. All right, so Ortho Mode. There's a question about Ortho Mode, which is down here on the right-hand side. Ortho Mode keeps things locked at 90 degrees angles. We can also go to Ortho Mode by beginning to type in Ortho Mode. So let's click that. And what you'll see is that as I'm drawing, with Ortho turned on, is that I can only draw at 90-degree angles. This is really helpful if you want to set up a grid for yourself. But this is not helpful if you want to set up a Philadelphia grid, because you can see that the Philadelphia grid is actually offset 12.9 degrees, somewhere between 12.5 and 12.9, depending on where you are in the city, from due north. But you can turn on Ortho Mode. You can also turn it off. There's another mode over here called polar tracking. I don't recommend that you guys get into that right away. That can get to be really confusing, but we're just going to keep it drawing in this drawing space. Okay, I want to keep going. We've gone over copy, trim, extend, offset. We've gone over move, line, P-line, spline. There is rectangle, rectang, which will give us a rectangle, which is nice if we're trying to draw something that's square. But unfortunately, everything in the city of Philadelphia, let's just move this over here. Everything in the city of Philadelphia is rotated. So let's use the rotate command. RO gets us to rotate, RO for rotate. And it will ask you to specify a base point. And that's the point upon which it's going to be rotated. This works very similar to how it works in InDesign. So click it once, and it will start moving around. And it'll see it gives you this big lever arm. It'll also ask you to specify the angle that you want it to rotate at. So if you want it to rotate 45 degrees, just type 45, hit spacebar, and there it is at 45 degrees. Let me do this out here in the clear so you guys can see what it looks like, all right? So here it is, RO for rotate, specify a base point. So let's specify the base point on the interior, and you can see that's what our lever arm will look like. Let's do it out here, RO, and let's put this base point out here. And you can see that I can rotate the whole thing and move it around. Again, your curiosity will pay off. So let's do RO one more time for rotate, select it, select the objects, sorry, RO, rotate, select objects, enter, specify the base point, and then look at the command line. Do you guys see how it says copy up there? So what does that mean? Well, let's just click on it to find out. Do you guys see what's happening? It'll actually make a contiguous copy. So it'll keep copying it about the base point, repeat rotate, specify base point, hit a copy, and it'll actually keep copying it. As you start to look at the command line, it'll start to kind of open doors to more ways to use the commands, and your exploration will be rewarded. All right, so let's see, we've gone over offset now, we've gone over rotate. Let's briefly just go over the mirror command. I'm just going to repeat these shapes here, and we'll do align this way, and we'll do align this way. Okay, so mirror command, MI, mirror command. If you want to mirror a bunch of objects, you just basically select the thing that is the mirror, and you kind of set where that mirror is located. And it will create a set of copies that are mirrored to that. Sometimes that can be really helpful if you're trying to create a lot of copies of a lot of copies. And then the ultimate mega copier is the array command, which is one of the more complex commands that I don't expect you guys to deeply get into. But array allows us to select an object, and then it will create, let's do a rectangular amount. And you can actually, so it used to be that you would have to type in the rows and the columns, but now you can do it visually by grabbing these control points and expanding them. So you can expand how many of these pieces you want to have. And you can also expand the distance between them by grabbing these pieces. So you can kind of expand the distance between the columns. So it's now all done graphically. It used to be done, you have to type it in. But now in the version that you guys have, you can just do it by grabbing those blue control points. Gonna hit enter, and then gonna hit escape. You'll see that this is actually, when you select them, it selects them all as a group. So they're still smart. They still know that they're an array, and you can actually dynamically change them, which can be kind of cool. But if you just want one of them, it's a little bit frustrating. So it's like, it would be better if this group was not grouped together. So there's two ways to do this. Let's see. Nope. All right, so we're gonna explode them. So we're gonna use the explode command to explode them from a group. Explode. And now they're individual objects and I can interact with them individually. Array has some useful tools. Array can be very frustrating at the same time. Okay, we've gone over different layers. We've made different shapes. We've talked about the spline tool. We've talked about snapping and turning off your snap. So sometimes when I just want to draw freeform and I don't want things to be turned on, I will type OSnap and I'll actually turn it off. So F3 will turn OSnap on and off. Here's, if you forget that F3 is a thing, you can just remember, it'll tell you right here. So turning snap off allows me to SPL spline, allows me to draw without sticking to stuff. And I like that too. And then I can go back in. So let's say that I don't feel like going in and saying property to all of these. If I go over here, let's turn on all of my layers. So I'm gonna go to layer management. I'm gonna hit the light bulb to turn all of my layers on. And I'm gonna draw a line on the construction line layer. And then I'm gonna draw a line on the pedestrian music layer. And then I'm gonna select another one, Andrew Visuals. I'm gonna select that. You can kind of see that I'm drawing over here on the left-hand side of my screen, veggies. I'm gonna keep drawing a line that represents every single line type that I have in my collection. This is kind of like a legend over here on the left-hand side. It's not for anybody except for me. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool called, instead of properties, I'm going to use this tool called match properties. Match prop, M-A-T-C-H-P-R-O-P. Once you start typing match, it's going to get you there, okay? M-A-T-C-H-P-R-O-P, match properties. Select source object, okay. Let's select this yellow line here. Okay, select destination objects. Now, watch what happens as I click on other drawings. Do you see how basically what I'm doing is I'm painting that property across onto other objects. And if an object is smart, it'll continue to take it across all of those objects. The other thing I can do, if I selected something I didn't want to, match prop. So if I got into a zone and I was just drawing a lot of lines and I'm like, oh man, I drew on the wrong property, I drew on the wrong layer, I can go in and actually move them back by painting again. And also, if my drawing starts to get too confusing, like all these purple circles are just too much, I can go in and I can turn it off. So let's turn off the magenta layer. And now those circles are gone. So I encourage you for the homework to actually draw too much, to draw too many layers. And this is going to be useful for two reasons. It's going to allow you to explore and get more information down. It's going to allow you to practice. And we saw how important it was to practice. And when we did the Zoom example. But the other reason, and I'm going to incentivize you guys to draw many layers and many lines and experiment widely, because your participation grade is going to be coupled to how many layers you draw that your friends use after we compile all of our drawings together. So let me go over that again. All the drawings that you guys make over the weekend, we're going to compile into one massive shared drawing. We're going to reference everyone's drawings on top of each other. One huge buffet. And then what you're going to do is you're going to sample out pieces of the drawings. And some of them might be yours and some of them might be other people's. And the amount of your lines that other people decide to use is going to directly impact your participation. So your participation is not going to be in your verbal participation in the class. It's going to be the amount and quality of stuff that you generate. All right. So I'm not meaning that to be mean. I want that, actually, the reason why we're doing that is to incentivize you drawing and exploring in as many graphic and valuable ways as possible. It also means that if you discover new stuff, people are going to value that. And so the more you explore, the better off you're going to be. All right. And this has been the case all along, the way that we have done this class, right? You guys have set the standards by things that we write down on the whiteboard as, you know what, this is good ideas. And I encourage you guys to steal and borrow from each other. This also means that working together is going to catalyze and give you new ideas about layers that you should draw. Because one of the strong points is seeing something that somebody else has drawn, maybe reading it differently and drawing your own version of it. So for the homework, if you're working with other people, you'll find that it benefits you in the amount of layers that you make. All right, let me just make sure that we've gone over, yeah, we have gone over all of the tools from my piece of paper. And I gotta be honest with you guys, that is 90% of what AutoCAD is all about. There is, the last 10% is much more complex, really powerful, and it's probably the reason why we use AutoCAD, but this is the part to practice and get down step. All right, I'm gonna open it up to questions, and I do wanna give us a little bit of class time to experiment and kind of just check it out. So any questions that anybody has, any other tools you want me to go over or to repeat?
You said something about like the colors and the layers.
Yes.
So if I draw like one layer with one color and then I just want to change the color of one line or one circle, is that possible?
Okay, so it's going to be best practices for every layer to have its own color and for everything on that layer to stay that color. Okay, so let's say, let me turn on my sound layer again, the one that I turned off. So here's that magenta sound layer. So this morning in the group, Adriana is going to draw sound. And so we talked about different kinds of sounds that she's going to draw. So she's going to draw nice sounds like people listening to music, and then she's going to draw like noisy sounds like traffic. So we were trying to think about how we would draw traffic, and we're going to say that it originates at this point. So here's the traffic noise, and then it kind of explodes every time there's a green light. So we draw lots and lots of big concentric circles. Now, let's say that we want to do a different color where the origin of the sound is. Well, what I would do, Janan, what I would do is I would make a new layer that specifies that. So let's do layer, new layer, and I already have one called Andrew underscore sound. So let's do it Andrew underscore sound origin. And let's make that color, I don't know, let's make it red, okay? And what we'll do is that we'll make that our current layer up here, Andrew sound origin, and let's make that a rectangle. And let's put it right here. And we could repeat that drawing. So we could keep drawing that rectangle, or we could, of course, we could use offset. So that's OF, offset, and we could offset that much, and we could offset it and offset it and offset it. There we go. And the reason why I named it Andrew Sound and Andrew Sound Origin is that because now they'll hit together on the category list very close to each other. So I'll know that these two layers should have a relationship. And this is nice because one of the things that we talked about was things having hierarchy. That was really important. So we might have like primary axes, secondary axes, tertiary axes. Pedestrian traffic was really important to a lot of you guys, but there's tourist pedestrians, there's people running, there's people walking, there's residents, there's bicycles, there's Segway scooters. So you might actually do pedestrians to start out with, but then start to add other layers of information on top of it. Chances are, if you're doing a pedestrian drawing, for example, that you're drawing lots of different pedestrians. And so having them on a couple of different layers, like imagine drawing a school group, which is maybe like, 18 lines, but then maybe drawing school group underscore teacher, who's kind of, shepherding them up the staircase. Maybe you're drawing a workout class with all of them kind of bounding up the staircase, but then maybe you're also going to draw, I don't know, people hanging out on the stairs. All of those could be pedestrian underscore, could be pedestrian underscore school group, pedestrian underscore Zumba, pedestrian underscore school group underscore teachers. And that way we can have the hierarchy of what's getting drawn on the group there. It's a great question.
I have a question.
Yep.
Well, I actually have two. My ribbon is on the left side and I want it to be on the top.
Okay. So you can grab just about anything and move it around on your screen. So for example, I did this earlier today. I accidentally grabbed layers and undocked it. And then it became its independent thing. And then it moved up accidentally and I docked it to the top of the screen and then it's over here. So you can actually grab any of those pieces and start moving them around. You can also go into the view and you can start messing around with the view configuration of everything in a variety of these pull down screens. So you can even grab the ribbon and you can move it around here as well. The other thing I'm going to say is, here we're going to say dock ribbon to side. Can you guys see the help window that just popped up? Is that an affirmative? Okay. So that thing is called, about setting the behavior of dockable windows. And I got to say, guys, I routinely use the help. Honestly, I think it's the best practice to use the help. So I will use it every single time I sit down at a computer. So we can set the behavior of all of these things. So here you go. Here's the pieces and here's how it works. Here's the bar for dragging stuff around, setting display and toolbars, locking the position. If you don't like how it moves around, that's what I would do. This thing along the top is called the ribbon. That's the name that AutoCAD uses for it. It's not the name Adobe uses for it. So we can actually like grab this and move it around. I think I have mine locked out because I usually grab it and move it around in ways I don't want.
Yeah, I think mine's locked too because I can't move it.
Yeah. And you can even see like you can do this if you click on a lot of these buttons, you can like get yourself into trouble really fast by like changing completely the way that you're familiar with how your window sets up. What I will say is those codes that I was giving you guys, like M for move and CO, what you will find is that you'll start using those and just start getting into a rhythm of using those codes, and that will be a lot easier and a lot more stable than moving the boxes around. I can follow up a little bit more after we're done recording on how to get this to work.
Okay, the other question that I had was, how do you see the history of what you do?
So that's a feature that Adobe has in Photoshop where you can see the entire, like the last 50 steps that you've done. So let me do this right now. So I can hit undo and I can basically play in reverse everything that we've done since I started with this file this morning. So let me just hold down Control Z. So it won't show you the history, to my knowledge. I'm pretty sure it probably exists somewhere. I just don't know where. But we can literally, this is probably really loud for you guys because my microphone is attached to my computer. But can you guys see how we're backing up all the way back to where, see, like we're now at Nicholas's question from earlier? And we can
What if
keep
you
going.
back to like go forward?
All right,
Where-
Control Y takes you forward until you do something new. So if I did a new move right now, it would erase the future, kind of like in Back to the Future. But if I hold down Control Y, I can now go all the way back. Now, if I make a new future, it'll erase everything that I've done. But I can play everything that we've done, including there was mirror, there's array, there's moving stuff around for array, here's setting the layers, and
How do you just like scroll?
all right, so scrolling is holding down your middle button. So if you hold down your middle button, you can move back and forth. And this reminds me of a really important tool. This is going to happen to all of you. You're going to zoom out, and then you're going to zoom out a little bit too far, and you're not going to remember where your project is. You're going to lose your project completely into the black darkness. When that happens, Z is for zoom. And what you want to do is you want to zoom extents. This is the other thing that's going to happen to you guys, is that you're going to draw something that's really small. Like you might draw a circle, and then you might accidentally move this circle 20 miles to the right, which is completely possible to do in AutoCAD. Now in Photoshop, if you made a drawing that's 20 miles long, it would crash your computer. But in AutoCAD, it's totally doable because vectors are less space than pixels. So if you guys can see this, everything's really small on my screen right now. And if I hit zoom extents, which is Z and then E, it will zoom to the extents of both of those objects. So my objects are still really tiny on the screen. So what I need to do is I need to kind of box select this entire area of the screen in the hopes that I grab something. So again, box select this entire area of the screen in the hopes that I grab something. There it is. I've got the little blue control points. And what I want to do is, I just kind of, you can even box select the entire screen, and it'll show you with these little blue control points what's close to each other. And you either have to make a command decision to delete some things or to move them closer together. Then zoom extents, which is Z and E, to get them closer together and closer together still. Zoom extents. The other option that you can do if you got stuff really far away from each other is you can, let's draw a circle way out here in the nether regions. We can try to grab absolutely everything and everybody. And you'll see that there's a little blue dot down here, and we can select that again. And we can say zoom, and we can say S for selected. Oh no, that command has changed. Zoom selected is no longer an option. Well, we're going to delete this rogue element. Zoom extents. You can also zoom in on just a single object, Z object, ZO, and it'll zoom to just center on that element in the screen. So here we go, ZO, enter, and it's just focusing on that element. don't freak out when this happens. It happens all the time. I have an unlockable mouse wheel on one of my mice, so you can kind of spin it. You can spin it and it'll continue spinning, which is really nice to like speed down a web page. But it's really big bummer when your cat or friend knocks over your mouse and it zooms away and you can't figure out where your project is. Zoom extents, Z space E. Z space E space will get you back to your project. The other thing that you guys can see that I'm doing is that I'm drawing most of my drawing close to the origin point of the file. You guys don't have to worry about that because I've provided you with a base file, and what I need you to do is lock the art museum and not move it. So you want to lock it and just draw all of your drawings on top of that drawing and not move it around. Because what happens is if you start drawing in different areas, so like if Nick starts drawing over here, and if Janan starts drawing over here, we won't be able to layer your drawings on top of each other. On Monday, we're going to go over a tool called XREF, and that's going to allow you to reference everyone else's drawings into your drawing and select from them. But it's very important that you guys all draw on top of this layer. Now, for homework, let's just briefly go back to, our handout here. All right, what I would like you guys to do is to pick three of these inventory items, and that's what you're going to focus on. But you're not going to limit yourself to those three. Anything that intersects with those three, you might do as well. So let's say that you're doing pedestrian stuff, all right? But the pedestrians also are affected by their 5 senses. So you might have to draw sound as well, which also goes over in here into sensory information. So you might be drawing pedestrians, site features, and infrastructure, but you're not limited to that. In fact, I encourage you to expand out into them. But what I want you to do is start somewhere. So I want you to pick 3 of these. And what we're going to do is we're going to make our way through here, and I'm going to keep a list to make sure that we have a nice even setting for everybody so that nothing is forgotten and there's not too many people on any one task. So that's what you're going to do, and you're going to use what you drew in your notebook to assist you, all right? So you're going to use those observations, and you're going to try to draw the way that you had it in your notebook, and you're going to evolve it into a new format as well. That's going to be.
Sorry, how are we going to know who's doing what?
So we're going to go over that right now. All right, and then you guys are going to draw those for class on Tuesday. All right, and we're going to use both of these files. So we are going to work on. Let's go back to the Autodesk. We're going to work on drawing stuff around the art museum, focused mainly around the stairs, but the whole art museum area that we have here. And then I've got the entire map of Rome, but we are going to focus our drawings on the Spanish Steps on this drawing that I have here. All right. And there's a reason why I'm having you do both of these places. One is because one is familiar, and the other reason is because one is not familiar. And so one is going to be easier to speculate, and one is going to be easier because you've been there. And some people find one easier than the other. But we're going to practice on both.
Wait.
Tuesday.
So if we open the file on our Autodesk
Yes.
and save it, does it save so everyone can see it or just us?
No. So you're going to want to save. You're going to go File, Save As, and you're going to want to save it to your desktop. And you're going to save it with your name and the date like we always do, right? So it's going to be 2004. And then if you're working on it today, today is the 9th, 09. And then you're going to say Nick, and then your last name. And then you're going to say what it is that you're drawing, okay? And you're going to want to save that locally. It's not going to be shared for everyone. We're going to work on sharing it on Tuesday in class because we've got enough to go over here. All right, what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to unpin the video, and I'm going to stop recording.